my God. Peter, these are lungs.
A team of scientists has just uncovered the remnants of a secret biological experiment gone terribly wrong.
They've changed its DNA.
It's mimicking us.
Critics say Mimic is an A-list, eye-popping, heart-pounding thriller. It's the scariest movie since Alien. Mimic.
Hello and welcome to episode 20 of We'll Review It Our Shelves, the podcast where we review the movies on our shelves. Every 2 weeks we'll take a randomly selected movie from our collection and we'll review it ourselves. I'm Brian Morgan, and joining me, as always, from the West Coast, is...
Dan Bergman.
Yay!
And there was much rejoicing.
Alright, so here we are, talking about Mimic.
20 episodes.
20 episodes in? That's pretty awesome.
Where does the time go?
Into the past, I think.
Oh.
I don't know. That was now.
Well,
when will it be then?
Right now. We'll get to that movie eventually.
Eventually. I just watched it the other day on Stars something or other. It was on. I watched it. It was fun.
Yeah. Someday, perhaps, but not today.
Not today. Today we're talking about 1997's Mimic.
Mimic.
Yeah, a lovely horror movie. So you know how much fun I had.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and you know how much fun I had.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. But first, before we move into actually discussing the movie, we don't have any listener feedback from any previous episodes, so I'm going to put a plug in here, and we'll also do it at our usual spot at the end of the episode. Send us feedback. We'd love to hear from you. Which brings us to our next little piece of the podcast puzzle, which is... How did this get on your shelf, Dan?
Well, oddly enough, this one does not occupy any space on my shelf. I don't actually own this one.
I'm surprised.
I am too, especially now that, it's like, again, I don't know if was it you and me or one other Navy buddy, we went and saw it.
Oh, you and I went and saw this. I
okay,
distinctly
this was
remember.
you and I. And, then, I don't know, I wasn't overly impressed with the movie. I mean, it had an interesting premise, it was kind of neat, but I didn't really think about it that much after that. And all these years went by, it's like, oh yeah, I knew there was a movie Mimic, but I never, said, oh, I need to get that and everything. All this time, and forgive me, because again, I'm not like a super fan of Guillermo del Toro. I admire his work. I like the movies that he's made as of late, but I had no idea this was a Guillermo del Toro movie.
Neither did I.
Because looking at it now, it's not, what's the word? The environment he did it in this movie is not fantastical. It's not Hellboy. It's not Pan's Labyrinth.
Right, it's not Pacific Rim.
Yeah, it doesn't take you... Hellboy had some reality parts. There was a lot of reality scenes in Pan's Labyrinth, everything. But this one didn't really take us to some otherworldly place. It took us to the subways and sewers.
Of New York.
Of New York. And I guess that's why I never made the connection. And it's like I said, I never really paid attention to this movie. Having to do this podcast, there was a lot of revelations. I had forgotten who was in this movie because I guess they weren't as famous then. We'll talk about the cast in a little bit, but yeah, it was very shocking to relive this movie and go, holy crap, he's in it, and it's like, this was done by who? Yeah, wow,
I had much the same reaction, and again, without going too far, will this be joining your collection at some point?
Like I said, it's like I never really put much thought into this movie. Yeah, there's like a renewed interest because of realizing who was in it or anything. But again, it's like I'm not the uber fan of Guillermo del Toro.
Okay.
So, it'll might eventually get there. I'm not discounting it, but not today.
Not today. It is. So, as you had already mentioned, you and I went to go see this movie, even though you didn't remember it was you and I.
Sorry.
And it, quite frankly, scared the crap out of me. It did exactly what it was supposed to do because it has the things that I hate most. One, not hate, it's a very strong word. I don't like horror movies. We've covered that. And this is where I will use the word hate. I absolutely hate insects. If it has more than 4 legs, I don't want it near me. If it has less than 2 legs, I'm okay. I don't have a problem with snakes. Hate bugs, spiders, the whole insect family is... I would rather nuke the site from orbit and just be done with it. So, why I own this movie, I don't know. I don't actually remember buying it, but I think as I tried to remember why I own it, I think it was one of those aversion therapy sort of things where it's like, oh yeah, I'll watch this, and maybe I'll learn to respect insects and love them, and maybe deal with my dislike of horror films. And yeah, no, didn't work. I don't think that I've watched this since the first time that I bought it and watched it. So, shows you how much I care for the movie. I'm not spoiling it for where it would belong, like in a rating system, because as a movie, my opinion is a little bit different, especially on the rewatch. But I will say that this movie did, I think, everything that I expected it to do the first time. It did it again this time. The jump scares made me jump, and the tension building areas built tension, so it did exactly what it was supposed to do.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, my lack of interest is no way meant to be an indication that I think this is a bad film. I mean, no, it's as far as films go, it's not bad. It's just like I said, it's just it didn't have what appealed to me to really grab me.
Yeah, fair enough.
I did find the premise, I don't want to say unique, but it was very interesting. It entertained me. It kept me interested throughout the film. And again, I'm watching it again, and I'm like, yeah, that is a pretty cool concept of creatures mimicking us,
Mm-hmm.
and, living amongst us as they prey on us or anything. Although I am a little confused because they say, it's like, here, this is a horror movie. These things are obviously preying on us, but they said, oh yeah, animals can evolve to mimic their predators. So this one mimicked humans, but we're not the ones hunting them.
See, you're jumping to the end of my notes because I was wondering why we don't even know about them. We in no way, shape, or form interacted with them until later in the film. I mean, they hunted the priest, that was part of it, and they'd killed other things.
Yeah, so in essence, it's like this one they evolved to look like their prey.
Yeah, there weren't bands of white guys in raincoats and fedoras chasing them down, so why adopt that as a disguise? I didn't understand that piece, so that was something that I had written in my notes that I was curious about and I wanted to discuss, but we'll just jump right into it. So now we're on to our movie discussion.
Well, it's like, again, if you understand how evolution works over a period of time, if she had said that this thing adapted or it evolved to be able to hunt its prey, which is us, that would make more sense because you get the generations and everything, and all of a sudden here comes a generation that mutates and to look like people, and they can get closer to the prey and be more successful at catching prey. And that's why they would continue.
And that would have made more sense. All you had to do is change one line of dialogue and you'd have been just fine.
Yeah. So that's my 2 cents of being nitpicky about the science.
There were some other things that I was nitpicky about the science on, but it was one of those I will push the I believe button because it's scaring me, and that's sort of what it's designed to do.
Yeah, and it serves the purpose of moving the plot along. They didn't have to go too much into it. The whole idea that the enzyme makes the cockroaches starve to death quicker than they can eat. Okay.
That's not exactly new, because the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park were missing an enzyme, and the movie was made in, 94, I think? I don't recall. But the book was written well before that, and that was a tremendous part of the movie itself. So, and that's one of the things that I did notice about this movie is it borrowed a lot from a lot of other different movies. It was pretty derivative, which might be why you don't remember it. There were a lot of things in the movie that were
not unique.
Exactly. It wasn't groundbreaking cinema. It wasn't It was a solid movie. And if you look at the reviews on like the IMDb link, there's some that give it a D plus, like this is straight garbage just about, and then some that give it a solid B plus, where it's like, yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. So the reviews span the gamut there. Oh, 93.
Spectrum.
Yeah, so Jurassic Park came out in 93.
Yeah.
But it was still a movie that was about genetic engineering. It was about controlling life, and that was actually one of the things that I put in my notes was a quote from Jeff Goldblum's character, Ian Malcolm. Life finds a way. It figures out how to survive, which is exactly what happened in this movie. So what I did not know was this movie was based on a short story of the same name.
Yeah, it was the book based on author Donald A. Wollheim's short story, like you said, of the same name. So I'll have to look for that book and check it out.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. It's a short story, so it shouldn't take too long.
Yeah, but it's always interesting, too. It's like when you didn't know that a movie was based in the book, and it's like, oh, I'm going to check the book out and see how close they got it. Which, for me personally, reading a book after the movie is better for me.
Yeah, we discussed that during The Ghost in the Darkness.
Yeah, if I read the book first, I don't enjoy the movie as much. That's just me.
I don't know. I'm kind of two minds in that. It depends on how long ago I read the book. If I've read the book and then 10 years later they make a movie, I might reread the book beforehand to go see what they changed. It's not going to take away from my enjoyment of the movie, because sometimes they trim things out and you're like, okay, that's fine. You just took two characters, merged them into one, and you still told a very similar story. But the other part of it is, and I think we discussed this during our Ant-Man episode, is like comic book stories. A lot of their stories are based off of comic book events, but they've changed them to fit a 2-hour runtime, whereas the story itself played out over 3 or 4 months and 20 or 30 issues of various comic books. So they trim a lot of fat and they pull out the stuff that just moves the story forward, which for the most part I'm fine with. Sometimes I just want to see things. Like in Captain America Civil War, there was the iconic shot of Ant-Man on Hawkeye's arrow. That was one of those, gleeful little shots to the comic book. You're like, oh, that was so cool. At Justice League did the same thing with the Flash and Superman at the end of the movie. It served no real purpose, but it was just one of those fun nods to the source material. So I appreciated that.
Those are fun.
Yeah, but getting back to this movie, I didn't know that it was a story, so if I read it afterwards, I don't think it's going to change my opinion. I don't know how much they changed it from, because it does say inspired by and not, an adaptation or something like that.
Yeah, that's the thing too. Whenever they say inspired by, it's like, yeah, okay, so probably the only element is a bug that looks like a person, and that's it. Those sometimes are a little annoying, but hey, that's all.
Yeah, I think when we first went and saw this at the theater, I don't think we really knew exactly what it was about.
We kind of had an idea. I mean, thinking about the commercials. I mean, when we first said that this was the movie we're going to review, I immediately thought of the commercials, and it was the scene they use where, and again, this kind of goes to, I don't know if we've mentioned it before in previous podcasts, is where trailers and TV spots just reveal too much of the movie.
Sometimes.
And it was the scene where she's taking the two Polaroids of the halves of the face.
And putting them together,
together, and say, oh, why haven't we seen these bugs? I think we have. And she shows him, the face, and I'm just like, yeah, okay, now we know what the premise is. There's
son of a bitch.
There's no
surprise. Yeah.
Yeah, if I had gone to this movie not knowing that the bugs could mimic us, I think that would have upped the enjoyment factor a significant number of notches. I think I would have been like, oh snap! It's like these bugs can imitate people. That's that. But I went to that movie knowing that, and it's like, okay, show me the bugs that can imitate people.
Yeah, could we get to the special effects bits, because that's what I'm here for.
Exactly.
And the special effects in this movie were quite good.
Oh yeah, they were.
I mean, the 97, so we're
not a lot of CGI.
Exactly, and that's what I was thinking, because Titanic came out around that time frame, and The Phantom Menace came out around that time frame, and those are two examples of heavy CGI in movies, And I think there's some in here. I tried to look and I couldn't find anything. But I think most of these, well, you can tell a lot of these are just practical effects, which I like.
I like that too. The only complaint I had with the practical effects is and I'll say specifically a scene when they took shelter in the subway car, and they're under attack, and it's because the character's leg is bleeding, and they're like, oh, they're coming after your blood, and Mira Sorvino gets not a revelation, an epiphany to take out, what was it, their scent glands or something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
And she, so she's reaching in this bug, and again, practical effects was great. Latex and slime and ooze and everything.
Yay, good stuff.
Yay, love that stuff. I think they overdid it with the sound effects. They really went with the, as she's reaching in, and it's just like, okay, no, you didn't need to do that. It looks good enough. I get it. It's icky. You didn't need to add the squishy sound effects.
Well, speaking to the sound effects, there were a couple of things, and again, and I'm criticizing the movie a little bit, but there were a couple of times when they're showing the main insects that are doing the hunting or whatever, and the sound effects for their little pincher jaw things coming out were like scissors. And I'm thinking, I've heard insects clicking and recordings and stuff, and I don't think it sounds like metal rubbing together. I mean, I could be wrong, but it sounded like, not scissors, but hedge trimmers more specifically. That's what it reminded me of. And I was thinking, I wonder if that's where they got the sound effect for that.
Probably the Foley artist did that, and I think just the metal sounding is menacing enough. That's the threat.
And that's where I went with it. I mean, it was scary. It gave me that like, ooh, that sounds bad. That sounds like it's going to hurt me.
Mm-hmm. I did enjoy, the little clicking noises, because when the little kid who encounters them,
yeah, Mr. Funny Shoes.
Mr. Funny Shoes or anything. I love that sound, and that's, again, not one that stuck with me like other sound effects in other movies or anything, but entertaining, and I was like, ooh, that's pretty cool sound. I guess if somebody used that sound effect on me sometime in the future to try to scare me, it might a little bit.
I could appreciate that, again, depending on the context.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about the little boy for just a minute, and this goes to sort of another thing that I kind of had an issue with in the movie. So he's autistic and has a bit of a savant syndrome going on where he can identify shoes, their size, the soles, the colors. I mean, the color's pretty easy, but I mean, it's like an immediate, from like 50 feet away, he looks at the priest's shoes and says, size 9, black leather, leather soles, blah, 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 blah. Okay, that's fine. Mr. Funny Shoes, he's 40 feet away. And then he has the spoons, and he's making the clicking noise that the insects use to communicate. But the insect didn't seem to react when he was doing it in the room and the window was open. I mean, I would think that it would want to go up there and investigate. Or, again, not knowing enough about insect communication, maybe that was a, hey, I've got this covered, so you don't need to come up here because I'm good. Again, could be scouts and that sort of thing. I mean, ants do that, so. But when he went down into the church and the insect took him, every other thing that they took, they ate. Or they ate within a very short period of time. I get it, emotionally we would have all been sad if he'd have eaten a little boy, and because they didn't show him being eaten, you can't just assume that he was eaten. But why didn't they eat him? For that matter, why didn't they eat Mira Sorvino when they took her? Josh Brolin, ironically, who is now has a lot more film credits to his name, he got immediately eaten. The priest got chased, but then he got drugged down and eaten. But he didn't last long. I mean, it wasn't more than like a day or two before they figured everything out, so obviously he'd been dead for a while. The dog that they had, the kids got immediately chopped up, the 2 bug kids. But why didn't, Chewie and Mira Sorvino's character get eaten?
Well, my knee-jerk reaction to Mira Sorvino, she's the star. She's the pretty white lady.
Right,
she's the pretty white lady. That's the only explanation I could give.
And she is a pretty lady.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. We were okay with the little kids, the little sewer rat kids getting eaten, but Mira Sorvino, no, that'd have been too much,
Yeah, because they were out there investigating, and they just no concern for their own safety until it became an immediate threat. And they're like, oh, well now they're dead.
The little kid, and the thing is, to answer your question as to why the bug maybe didn't come up. I mean, I could think comically if the bug was saying like, eat that MFer, and everything, and he imitates that, and he's like, well, that was rude or something like that, you know?
Sure, in the communicative sense of, well, he's clacking the spoons and,
Yeah, he's making the
interesting.
same noise, you know, because I mean, if you just say, F this shit, you know, and it's like, and and then somebody says the same thing, and you're like, yeah, you know, you don't think to
Like,
go
yeah,
look
group, yeah, let's go
all
eat
right,
something.
okay, peace out, man, and you just, you know, you're not worthy of investigation. So that's an explanation I could give. You know, it's again that willful suspension of disbelief. I'll go
Not
with that.
buying it, but it made me feel good that the little boy that we're supposed to care for didn't get eaten. So, and
Yeah,
and,
good for
and,
him.
and functionally, that's the piece of it, is he's the one we're supposed to care about.
Yeah, but that's the thing too. You mentioned the other two little kids, the ones who go through the sewer and find bugs to sell to Sorvino's character. You know, again, being a horror movie fan, at least in that time period and previous or anything, kids were generally off limits. I mean, yeah, there was a few exceptions. I mean, I can go all the way back to the original Frankenstein movie where Frankenstein threw the little girl into the lake. But otherwise, you know, kids were generally, you know, you could scare them, you could torment them,
But you can't kill him.
but yeah, you couldn't kill them. And so when those two kids, like, you know, there they go, you know, and right there on camera, not implied, not suggested, not talked about, shown, right there, and that kind of shocked me when we saw it in the theater. I'm like, wow, they actually did that.
Yeah, that's an interesting point because I know that sort of, I don't want to say instinctively, but it's not one of the things that I'd ever put into words before, that, you know, kids are generally off limits. They're usually the cutesy, I have to survive kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, you know, it's like, yeah, they can be scared, tortured, tormented, or whatever to become the object of affection,
Mm-hmm.
motivation. You know, the you know, and the reason why we should hate the monster that did that to them. You know, whether it be like an abusive parent or the serial killer or Jason Voorhees or whatever. But yeah, like I said, they never, like, on camera. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong because I haven't seen every single horror movie, obviously, but
Well,
not
sure.
the ones that I've seen. They've generally been off limits.
But I think in mainstream horror movies, that's pretty true. I think a pretty truthful statement. Again, I haven't done a statistical analysis, but I think that's a fair statement.
But it'd be interesting to see if, again, if a fan who is a lot more in depth into the statistics than I am to
Well, I
say.
would be curious to hear what our listeners have to say as far as whether that's a thing that they've noticed as well, whether they agree or disagree, or examples of where kids have been killed in movies, not in real life. That would be bad. Sadly, there's enough of that in the universe anyway. So,
Yeah. So
but yeah, I did like the kid. Chewy was his name, and going sort of to the end of the movie, there's a point that someone had written on one of the websites, like a goof in the movie, where Mira Sorvino is going out of the subway car to go flip the line switch or whatever, and Giancarlo's character is already dead, and she sees the little boy and she says his name, and there's no point during the movie where they actually say the kid's name to her, so by all rights, in movie land, she shouldn't have known the kid's name, but, you know, there she did. It was all good.
yeah, well, we knew, so that's all that mattered.
Right. And at that point, you're already near the end of the movie, and the kid's dad is dead, and he's already survived, so you're pretty sure he's going to survive anyway. So, but again, because they killed the kids earlier, you don't necessarily know.
Yeah, and it's like it was one of those things. And again, I'm sure they've done this in previous movies, but I associate it with Saving Private Ryan because a lot of main characters that were big time stars got picked off in that film, and it just kind of showed that everyone is fair game in this movie. And like I said, that one, yeah, it's like the two kids were picked off early, and so you're like, hey, yeah, anything goes, man.
Yeah, and there was the part where Mira Sorvino's husband, and again, I cannot, Northam is his name, the actor's
Jeremy
name.
Northam, yeah.
Yeah, where he goes into the egg layer, into the hive's hatchery, or whatever you want to call it, the nursery, if you will, and he blows the thing up with a spark on
Gas pipe.
the gas, or he breaks some holes in the gas pipe and then lights the gas and blows up the whole thing, and you see the great big gouts of flame coming up from manhole covers and sewer grates and all that kind of stuff. So you know this was a big gas explosion. That's great. I have no problem with that. He dives in the water, which again kind of shows that survivability thing. It's funny because you mentioned Hellboy, and I started thinking about the scene in Hellboy where he's fighting the dual beasts or whatever. Every time you kill one, two take its place.
Yeah.
And he goes into the nursery or whatever for that, and it's again a water-based scene, and he blows it up and dives in the water. I was like, oh, hey, look, Guillermo del Toro got an idea and stuck with it.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting.
Go with what works.
Well, it's a movie trope, so it's fine. He has to survive so you can have that tearful reunion.
I'm good with it.
It didn't bother me at all. I was like, all right, cool.
You know, talking about the cast, like I said, you earlier you mentioned Josh Brolin being in this, and obviously, you know, he wasn't as famous as he is now. But the one that surprised me again, other than finding out this was a Guillermo del Toro movie, was saying that Norman Reedus was in this movie, aka Daryl Dixon from The Walking Dead. It's like, and that's the thing. Even when I watched it, I did not recognize him because he does not look the same. He's very young in this movie, plays a very different character. You know, he's the guy that works in the sewer and gave Mir that specimen and everything. Yeah, he's the one that actually says your line. It's something. It's got more than 2 legs or 4 legs. It's not a mammal. You know.
Yes, exactly.
And I had no idea. But then, as I said, when I was doing further research for the notes on this and everything, and I saw he was in the list of cast members, I'm like, no, Jeremy, which one was he? And I actually had to go on YouTube and go, which one is, you know? And I'm like, oh, that scene, you know, like that does not. And now that I know, it's like I hear his voice, and I'm like, wow, that's a very young, squeaky Norman Reedus there. Sounds like he belongs in the Goonies, you know, not on The Walking Dead.
Oh yeah, absolutely. One of the other people, well, actually, since we're talking about the cast, there's people who went some places and people who I think this was kind of their peak. Let's take Mira Sorvino, for instance. She was in Romy and Michelle's high school reunion, and that put her on the map, if you will. And then she was in a couple more movies, and then she's still acting. I looked up her filmography on IMDb, so she's still doing stuff and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But nothing that she's really been a headliner in. So this was kind of it. You know, this was about as high as she got.
Well, no, didn't she win an Oscar for The Mighty Aphrodite, the Woody Allen film?
She did, but again, you know, that was all in the same, you know, mid-90s time frame. I think she won the Oscar and then she was in this, and she obviously wasn't afraid to do other things, you know, other than deep movies. I mean, she did Mighty Aphrodite, she did Michelle and Romy, which we already mentioned, and then she did this.
Yeah.
But now she's kind of acting in some television shows and a couple of, we'll call it made-for-TV movies and that sort of thing. So she's keeping herself employed. But, you know, on the flip side, I looked at her bio, and before she ever started acting, she was Harvard educated.
Nice.
She is the daughter of Paul Sorvino.
Yes.
You know who that is, right? Yeah.
Oh, yes. Paulie from Goodfellas.
Yeah, and he was in Law and Order the first couple of seasons, and he is the stereotypical Italian, you know, mafioso, you know, kind of guy.
Yeah, he has a presence.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
But yeah, she went to Harvard, graduated magna cum laude. Magna cum laude? How do you say that? Magna cum laude.
Magna cum laude.
Yeah, and she majored in Chinese. So she's apparently incredibly intelligent and just decided she wanted to go pursue acting.
Yeah, and that's cool too, because I admire that. You know, it's like when actors who do it and really don't need to, but they're good. I mean, you know, Natalie Portman being the one that I admire the most, who's, you know, highly college educated and everything. She doesn't really need to be an actor, but she is, and she does a good job at it.
Well, it paid for college, so
yeah.
There's some things I don't like her in, but you know, that's neither here nor there.
I didn't say she was perfect, but I mean,
fair enough.
But just kind of go back. Yeah, actually, yeah, she did. She won the Oscar for Mighty Aphrodite. That was in 1995. So, yeah, at the risk of sounding too harsh, but I mean, this was probably on the downslope. Because you know, 2 years later was Mimic, and then a couple other. I remember, like, The Replacement Killers was another movie that I remember her in.
Oh yeah, I do remember that. And that was Chow Yun-fat when he was big too. So
Yeah, that's when he kind of rose to fame.
and then went away.
And well, again, he had a few and then just kind of sloped and everything. So some actors they go through periods.
Well, one of the other actors that I recognized and I could not place, I was like, I know him from somewhere. I've seen him in something. Was Giancarlo Giannini, the shoe shine guy.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy crap, has he been around that long? Yes, apparently he has.
He's got an impressive resume too when I was doing the research and everything. Because again, I was like you. I was like, oh, that guy looks familiar. What's he from? And I remember from Man on Fire and what was the other movie he was in? Shoot.
He was in the James Bond movies, 2 of them, the Daniel Craig movies.
Yeah.
He was in Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace.
You know what? I haven't seen those. So.
Oh, well, they're on the list, so you'll see them eventually.
Eventually.
But he's really big in Italy.
Oh, there's a Hannibal.
Yes,
The
yes.
Hannibal Lecter prequel. He was a detective who was trying to cash in on the bounty and ended up getting gutted.
Yeah, murdered to death. I've been to that church in Florence where he...
Did you
where
get
he pushed
gutted?
him out. I did not, obviously.
Oh, okay.
I did, but they put it all back in. I got the scars to prove it.
All right.
No, in fact, a sidebar real quick. One of my favorite parts of Hannibal are the scenes where they're in Florence. They're like, ooh, I've been there. Ooh, I've been there. Ooh, I've been there. It was a quick day trip, but we saw as much as we could possibly see. So
That's awesome.
yeah, Florence is cool. Just to our listeners, if you get a chance to go to Firenze, give it a shot. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So you like you were saying, this guy big in Italy. Apparently, he does a lot of voice acting too for dubbing for Italian releases of movies. I guess he dubs for Jack Nicholson in The Shining and Batman, and he often dubs Al Pacino in Italian releases of his movies.
I can see that.
Yeah, I mean he does have that deep, scratchy voice.
Yeah, reminiscent of Nicholson and Pacino.
Pacino.
Yeah. The other actor that I wanted to discuss was Charles Dutton, or Charles S. Dutton, if you would like to be.
Yes.
I think this was the biggest movie that he was in. I didn't really look at his filmography, but I remember he was in Alien 3 as well. I forgot about that, and a few other things.
Rudy. I think that was the first thing I saw him in.
What I remember him most from was around the time of this movie was the television series Rock.
Yeah, I do remember that.
And I never really watched it. I just knew that he was the guy from Rock. And I think that did 3 or 4 seasons. And in this movie, he was kind of the same sort of guy where he was a little bit of a smartass and, just kind of an everyday guy that was put into a crappy situation.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of crappy situation, I did like his bit where he got to say shit over and over and over again when they were going down into the bowels of the subway system, into the old tubes and the old stations and all that kind of stuff. And they said, oh, you got to come over and see this crazy shit. And by the turn of phrase, you think you got to come see this crazy stuff. Like, no, it was literally shit. And he said it like, I don't know what this shit is. What makes you think I would come down here and know what this shit is? I ain't never seen no shit like this before. As much as I don't mind cursing in movies, it was both amusing and annoying at the same time. Like, I get what you're doing, you're double using shit, but it was kind of to the point where you're like, all right, you can stop doing that.
Yeah, two points to this that I feel I have to make. One, it's very reminiscent of one of George Carlin's old skit about profanity. And he talked about shit, and he said that people always use that in a very figurative manner.
Mm-hmm.
Don't give me that shit. Look at that shit. It's like it always means something else. Nobody ever uses it in a literal sense. Hey, look at that pile of shit, Martha. That dog really must have been. It's like, it's very rarely. So there's that. I think that's kind of what they were making fun of. It seems. It's like because it literally was a pile of shit. It's like. But the other thing though. And this is probably one of the things that we do often is dig a little deeper into certain issues when we talk about movies, especially a movie that doesn't really dig into deep issues such as this one. But I admire Charles Dutton as an actor. Like I said, I watched him in Rock. It was a TV show that I did watch, which Looking at this, he did 72 episodes. It's very
Yeah, it's
respectable.
about 3 or 4 seasons.
Respectable.
23 episode seasons and a Christmas special or two.
Yeah. And just kind of on a tangent note on that, I remember there was one episode where they really went into, the troubles of America's healthcare system. So again, that's an argument that's been going on for a very long time.
Well, again, the mid-90s, Clinton was president, and Hillary Clinton, as the first lady, was trying to push a healthcare system. So
yeah,
that was her cause du jour as the first lady. So, it's not particularly new.
Very old issue. So, but anyway, to go back to Charles Dutton, again, I admire him as an actor. I like the roles that he's been in. Like I said, the first movie I saw him in, well, okay, maybe, actually, you know what, probably digging into my memory was Alien 3. And like I said, he was also in Rudy. He was the janitor who was kind of like, and I didn't know it was him at the time. I'm looking at this. He was in Crocodile Dundee 2, but I had no idea it was him. I guess that's when he really started. My point being, though, this movie, did they really have to make him so ghetto?
I don't know. There's a part of me that, quite frankly, didn't really care. Like, he was a subway cop, he was a workaday Joe, and that's kind of what I expect a workaday Joe to be. I didn't really see it as ghetto so much as workaday Joe. I mean, you could have put any character actor in that scene of any race, and they pretty much would have been the same person.
You think so?
I think. I mean, there's probably some stereotypes that they played with. I mean, I'm not going to deny that. But he could have easily been a white guy who was, just a guy on the street. It was like the other guy, Norman Reedus, that you talked about earlier, who was the sewer guy who found the half a bug or whatever the hell it was, the carcass. They could have replaced him with anybody. It was really just, that was who happened to be there and who got the role, and they thought they fit the film. So I think it fits the Manhattan Transit Authority, which you normally tend to see in movies, stereotype.
I don't know if I fully agree with that. I see what you're trying to say, but again, I think that, to me, I kind of saw this as, Hollywood just playing with a stereotype, and they couldn't portray him as anything else other than that because it seems like the audience might not have bought it. And to use your example of Norman Reedus's part as a sewer worker, it was shown that he played in the Miro Sorvino's assistant's band.
Mm-hmm.
And he really played up that oh yeah, I'm a musician and I'm really kind of the guy who's I'm cool with working in the sewer, not very ambitious or whatever. And he played that role. I mean, I don't think you could have given that role to give me an example of a very well respected actor that
Tom Hanks.
Okay, yeah, I don't think you could have given it to Tom Hanks. I don't know if anybody would have bought that as Tom Hanks as a sewer worker who's perfectly happy working the sewer playing in a band.
Maybe in the 90s they would have. Again, you'd have to think about the time frame that this movie came out.
But you get the point that I'm making, though. It's like, the audience bought that. I bought that. With Charles S. Dutton's character, I don't think if he tried to do Morgan Freeman from Seven.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no.
Yeah, people would have been like, I don't like this guy.
But if you look at Charles S. Dutton's body of work, specifically in that era, he was known for playing the workaday Joe. In fact, 72 episodes of Rock. This character in Mimic is Rock. He just happens to work for the Metropolitan Transit Authority or whatever. He just happens to be a New York MTA cop. It's the same character. It's the same guy. So it may have been that he was doing what he wanted to do and they were just okay with it. As opposed to, no, what I really want your character to be is deeply steeped in classical music and classical literature. It's just that this was the only job you could get. I mean, he knew plenty about the subway cars. He was, again, the stereotype. That's why they brought him along, because they needed somebody who knew about subway cars so that they could, have that moment in there and repair, or at least attempt to repair, the CR-17 Coney Island car that was built to last, etc. So, I think he did what he needed to do. Do I think there was some stereotype stuff in there? Yeah, absolutely. But I'm not quite sure where to point the finger at as to whether or not it was an acting choice or a directing choice. And if it was an acting choice, then it's on him.
Okay, I'll accept that. Talking about the character who was knowledgeable and articulate, but yet everyday workaday Joe, like you described, makes me think of Die Hard with a Vengeance. The dump truck driver
Hmm.
who was, the human Trivial Pursuit guy who knew everything and was telling uh, McLean about all the aqueduct and everything like that. He didn't exactly portray as the typical New York, oh yeah, I'm gonna get my hero sandwich and beat up some moolies or whatever and this and that. No, he was the everyday worker guy that knew stuff.
But he was the guy that knew about his specific area. They never went anywhere where they had to demonstrate knowledge about taxi cabs or about the Empire State Building or any other New York landmark. They were in the subways, so they had to have someone who worked in the
Yeah,
subways to show the knowledge.
yeah, and again, but that's fine. I get that, and I say, but that's not the point I'm making. Is that they had to embellish it. You smell this shit. I smell this shit. What makes you think I would know about this shit? It's like to me that it's just like he really kind of hammed up the stereotype.
And again, could have been an acting choice.
Could have been not the one I would have gone with, but that's just me. And like I said, knowing what I know now.
Well, in your most recent film, I think you made a wonderful choice to portray yourself as an erudite scholar, and you were quite representative of, I don't know, I'm just making stuff up now, so
Yeah,
mostly because you haven't been in a film, just throwing it out there.
yeah. Well, and again, if we have to talk about, departures of that character, again, like you said, he played the everyday worker guy, Alien 3, he played a convict who was enlightened and articulate, wanted to be something more than what cards he was dealt.
But he was stuck there because he was a convict.
Yeah, but again, I like the character. He wasn't stereotypical, not in my opinion.
I don't know, I've never been to prison.
I've been in prison, not as a convict, but as a paramedic and everything. So
Ah, fair enough.
That's
good.
I've met a number of convicts, so
Very nice.
a relatively nice cross section to begin an understanding.
Okay.
Not going to say that I do understand them, but it's a start.
So one of the other things that I did like, moving on past Charles Dutton, because I think we've beat that horse into the ground, I did like that the lead problem solver, the hero in the movie, was female. That was kind of nice. It made it reminiscent of Alien, which is something that, again, in my research, someone had pointed out. This is very derivative of certain aspects of Alien and a few other movies of the genre. But it was nice to see, and I don't recall specifically in the 90s if there were a lot of female intelligent heroines that were in movies, but this was a decent example of it. I mean, she was an entomologist, so obviously she was educated. She was fairly independent. She didn't really need anyone. She was just, she had friends. She had work. She had a husband, and it was all that little dreamy stuff. They're like, oh, I got a husband, and eventually we're going to start a family and all that kind of stuff. So it was kind of stereotypical. It was the dream, if you will, the American dream. But it was, I think, one of the first movies in a decent while that had a strong, intelligent female lead in a scary movie, as opposed to someone who just happened to be shoved into a spot. The conceit of this movie is that she caused her own problem by playing God.
I did really like that she was not the damsel in distress.
Mm-hmm.
That's a trope that I think I've mentioned before that I'm just kind of tired of, and
Yes.
I'm really turned off by that. Yeah, that is a refreshing thing. She's no Ellen Ripley, I'll tell you that. Not quite the badass, but
Well, she didn't need to be at any point, so...
no. And that's the thing. I do like that she was both the cause of and solution to the problem in this movie.
Yes. And that's actually one of the things that I wanted to talk about. It was like the first page of my notes, like 5 lines in. We started with the last page of my notes, so apparently we're working backwards, is the genetic engineering that took place to create the Judas bug, or whatever it was, the Judas
Yeah, the Judas breed.
Yeah, the Judas breed, which was a nice, because throughout the movie they show Christian iconography, and specifically Catholic, and the whole association with Judas and the betrayal was interesting, and obviously done on purpose.
Well, that's something I think Guillermo del Toro likes to do too. It's just something you see in a lot of his, Hellboy, obviously.
Hmm.
Um, it's what he does. It seems.
It's a theme he likes to work with. But the genetic engineering piece, I'm not a genetic engineer, so I don't know. And I don't recall when we mapped the human genome. I do know that we've made great strides in that. But if you're familiar with CRISPR, it is a method of editing genes for specific traits to a very exacting degree. There's a lot of work being done in China. The stuff that's in this movie, I started thinking about the stuff that can be done now if they wanted to, set aside all of the ethical concerns, and a lot of this stuff, a lot of the things that are brought up in this movie about genetically engineering a specific breed of insect to take care of an insect problem is pretty realistic. I've heard that one of the methods that has been discussed to control the Zika virus is to release sterile mosquitoes into the native region where the mosquitoes that carry Zika are, and breed them out of existence in the same way that they did with the cockroaches in this movie. So the technology exists, and I assume it existed around about this time. They at least took a logical extension of existing technology, but it is an interesting exploration of the ramifications of doing something without thinking about the backside. You know, if you take the ethical concerns out of it and go, well, this'll work, and we've solved this problem, so, until Ian Malcolm shows up to tell us that life finds a way, we'll be fine.
The thing is, like, you talk about how they didn't really think and everything. It's reminiscent again of using of an entirely unrelated movie, but from the movie Contact, it's like there's 101 scenarios that we can think of, but there's always that one that we don't.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'm sure Mira Sorvino's character was not portrayed as somebody who was flight of fancy or impulsive. She again was played an intelligent character who knew her job, who knew her field and everything. And I don't think she just went into this lackadaisically thinking that, oh yeah, we're gonna release this bug and everything's gonna be fine. I'm sure she thought about it and everything. The idea of the bugs living past what she had set in place for them to die out, living past that, never even crossed her mind.
I'm sure, because she had already taken care of that problem. They were sterile. And there were only females. There were no males.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. I'm sure she went through the whole thing like a 1,000 times, simulations and computer models and calculations and everything. And I think she says, yep, this is going to work. But there was that one instance, that one unanticipated mutation. And
yeah, where
we have a
life
movie.
Found a way. Exactly. Which brings me to my next point, my next concern about the movie. And it wasn't until I'd watched this and then did a little bit more research that I realized that there were sequels. And then I thought, oh yeah, I actually did know about those. I just didn't care.
Yeah.
But the thing that I was thinking at the end of this movie was, okay, so we talked about evolution. Well, she did. And we talk about the generations, like, thousands of generations of this insect, because they're short-lived and they reproduce quickly. So I'm not a real smart guy. I'm not an entomologist, but if there's a colony, don't offshoot colonies get created somewhere within several generations? I mean, I'm not sure. And I did a little bit of research, and I couldn't really find a solid answer. But it just struck me as odd that in the 3 years and several thousand generations that there were no escapes out into the rest of the world, and no one had seen this thing in the general public. Because as they walk through the subway, specifically the kids, you see the drawing on the wall of the subway of the man in the raincoat, the big insect. And I forget what they call the mole people or whatever, the homeless people that lived in the subway. So obviously they'd seen it, but who's going to trust them? And when the autistic kid saw him, it was like, oh, Mr. Funny Shoes. Like, oh, yeah, there's nobody there. Whatever, Mr. Funny Shoes. Okay, you're autistic. We have to figure out what you mean anyway, so it's probably nothing. And it wasn't until later that we actually see Mira Sorvino, I think, was the first character to actually see the thing in light and figure out, what it was and go, oh crap, and then start to run away. So isn't it possible that there are other colonies? And that was kind of where I went. And then again, I saw that there were sequels. I'm like, oh, okay, well, somebody explored that. But it just seemed kind of odd that, another queen or another male hadn't been produced at any point, and they hadn't created an offshoot colony in, let's say, Brooklyn or the Bronx or Manhattan or wherever. Pick a New York location. I don't know.
Well, my answer to your question is like, why haven't people seen it more? Is that, in what little I know of entomology, is that the offshoot colonies do tend to pop up much further away from the original colony. I mean, that's how they spread.
Well, they're territorial,
yeah,
right? So
so you could probably have them in upstate New York in the wilderness where.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one of the sequels takes place there. I'm not sure.
Old Bob Fibber and the farm, it's like if he gets attacked, we don't know. Oh, he probably got eaten by a bear, Like,
yeah, exactly.
Are there bears in New York? That was probably very, very bad of me to
maybe
assume.
I'm sure Sasquatch.
Yeah, Sasquatch. But again, in the rural areas, they probably do see it. Probably a little less human interaction in those areas.
Right, and they're more eating wildlife and that sort of thing, and they just come across a slaughtered animal and think something else ate it. So
yeah, so there's my explanation of that. To answer your question.
Okay.
But very much so. Yeah, in the Thousand Generations, I will agree that there would be offshoot colony or anything. And again, if we cared more about the sequels, we probably would have seen that. Yeah, they did explore that.
Yeah, no, not going to. I mean, aside from reading the Wikipedia entry, not even remotely interested. This movie was good. I'm fine. I'm concerned about napping this evening and waking up in the middle of the night. So
yeah, but this does remind me too, when you talk about the offshoot colonies, this does remind me of the classic sci-fi movie from the 1950s was Them, about
the ants,
the giant nuclear ants.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that movie, it started out, where was it, the New Mexico desert?
I think so, where they were doing the nuclear testing.
Yeah. And they end up in Los Angeles because one of the offshoot colonies entered the Los Angeles River. So, yeah, it happened there. Stands to reason. This movie, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure. I don't know where New York rivers go, but whatever. It was just one of those things where I'm like, after thousands of generations, you'd think they'd be somewhere else. I wouldn't think they'd be localized. But the thing is, termites, and she even makes it a point when she's providing the exposition for the audience to the kid, is, they were building castles when the dinosaurs were wee little lizards. And, you think about termites and they have these large mounds and they generally tend to be there. That's kind of the home colony, and that's where they live, and that's where they live, grow, die, whatever. But then you think about, like, the Australian outback and there's all of these termite mounds. Like, well, that had to happen somehow, right? So it does, again, make sense. I did like that aspect of it. When the bug kids came in to sell the bug, again, it's a little bit of a segue, but going back to what I was talking about, the exposition about insect life that gives you the means to kill the nest at the end of the movie was simple exposition to a child to explain it. It was like, yeah, hey, I'm talking to a kid, but I'm explaining it to you audience people who don't know. So, interesting point of note, I don't think I've mentioned this before on the podcast, but my uncle used to be a professor of entomology at Penn State University. So, when I was a kid, we would get t-shirts with, like, outlines of insects on them for Christmas and stuff like that. And it was always from my uncle who lived in Pennsylvania.
That's cool.
It's just one of those things where I'm like, I have an entomologist in the family, and had I thought about it earlier, I would have attempted to do some personal research. I don't actually have any contact, so.
Cool little story.
Yeah. this will probably get cut out of the final edit, but when I was a kid, we got the shirt, and someone said, "Yeah, you know your uncle's an entomologist." And they looked at me, and I think I was like maybe 6 or 7 or something. Said, "Do you know what that is?" I said, "Yeah, it's somebody who studies bugs." And for some reason, I specifically remember reading an Encyclopedia Brown book, if you recall that series of books.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And he used the word entomologist in the book somewhere and told me what it was. And, to my 6 or 7-year-old brain, I was like, oh, okay, cool, that's neat. Those are bugs, yay. And I didn't have so much of an issue with bugs. But for some reason, I just remembered that specific name of the study of bugs and entomology. And it came up in a conversation.
That's cool.
That's what I do.
That's what you do. So let's get right to the subject of bugs.
Yes, let's do that.
So this movie came out in 1997.
Yes, sir.
Correct. The movie Starship Troopers came out in 1997.
Did it?
Yeah.
Wow, I remember going to see that with you too.
Mm-hmm. And the first Men in Black came out in 1997.
Bugs were a theme in the 90s.
You noticed that?
In 97. Strange.
I had noticed that years ago, but didn't think much of it. Now that we're talking about it, I remember that, wow, bugs really were the bad guys about that time.
Well, yeah, because bugs suck. Everyone's afraid of bugs. Nobody likes bugs except for a small percentage of people.
Yeah, but why in 1997? Why suddenly they were the enemy?
I don't know. Yeah, but they were the enemy in the 50s. You even said it in Them. And I remember when I was a kid going to the theater and seeing, and I can't for the life of me remember the name, but it was a movie which may have contributed to my distaste for anything with more than 4 legs. But it was a movie about giant spiders that were terrorizing some town, and they were
Eight-legged freaks.
No, it wasn't that. It was
okay.
something else. It was much older. It was in the 80s.
Oh, okay.
I was around about 84 when I saw it, so I don't remember how old the movie was. But it's not particularly new. It's coincidental, that all of these things happened at the same time, but it's not like Hollywood hasn't done things like that before. Look at Deep Impact and Armageddon. Both movies about heavenly body impacts with the Earth came out at the same time. That a lot of similar ideas get shopped around Hollywood at the same time, and someone says, oh yeah, we should totally make that. And then somebody else says, oh yeah, we should totally make that. Hey, I heard so-and-so is making a bug movie. We got to make a bug movie. It's kind of a theme.
I guess, yeah. When you said Armageddon and Deep Impact, it's the two movies that seem to coincide. That's 2 movies, but there was, like I said, there was Men in Black, Starship Troopers, Mimic, and then oddly enough, in 1998, you had A Bug's Life and Ants.
Oh, see, now bugs are friendly.
Where bugs are cool now. It's just
it's like the counterpoint. Whoa,
we're sorry. We didn't mean to make people step on you more often than they normally do. So hey, let's make them endearing again.
Fair enough. And Ants and A Bug's Life again, 2 rival animation studios doing similar stories. So again, Hollywood has the same idea a lot.
Yeah. Which, I guess sometime that'd be a bigger issue is Hollywood really creative, or are they just recycling a bunch of crap?
Yes and no.
For another day.
No, but we've said it before, so this is, in summation, it's not about whether or not you tell me the same story, it's about whether or not you tell me the same story in a way I find intriguing.
Yeah. Let's see. It was like I was saying earlier, and I don't know how you're going to cut this in. I had done a paper in college, and I took a class in the history of cinema. It was kind of a thing where it's like, oh, I like cinema, so it should have been an easy A. Valley College, the guy who teaches history of cinema, not an easy A, man. This guy is very detail oriented. I learned a lot though.
Good.
But I did a paper, and of course it was about horror movies, and it was about how the themes in horror movies matched the fears of their contemporary zeitgeist. And it's like, so like during the Cold War, there was the paranoia of alien invasion because we were worried about the communists infiltrating America. So that, you had the argument for Invasion of the Body Snatchers being that, and all these other alien invasion movies
Okay.
being reminiscent of that. Godzilla was a reaction to the nuclear fears and all the other movies like that, like them. And so it makes me wonder that what was the fear in the late 90s that bugs became the thing to fear, the thing to hate.
I don't know. Maybe it's just the fact that they're bugs and we all have a psychological issue with insects.
Well, again, I have to ask deeper because, as you pointed out, in the 50s there was plenty of films that featured bugs, but again, it was mostly with the idea of science running amok, which in the 50s.
Well, isn't that what this is? Not necessarily science running amok, but science going in unintended direction.
Yeah, but you didn't have that in Starship Troopers. That was more of a political thing.
Certainly.
And Men in Black was, kind of a sociological thing and everything, but yet they all had the bugs. So the commonality was the bugs. In the 50s, the commonality wasn't necessarily the bugs. It was the consequences of nuclear proliferation and the paranoid, albeit, very far-fetched consequences.
I don't know. I'm not really prepared to discuss that deeply. I would have to do a little more research.
Okay, well, something else for the listeners then, if they so choose to weigh in on that.
Give me 20 minutes. I'll be right back. I'm kidding.
It's like, we'll put on some background music for our listeners while we research this. Ding, 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 ding.
No, ooh, Kenny G. Speaking of music, that was actually one of the things that was in my notes. I did like the music in this movie. I know it's there to set a mood and to build the tension, but one of the things that I had noted while I was watching it was the eerie and ethereal qualities, particularly when the giant bug was skulking about and you were setting that, is it going to attack, is it not going to attack? The music kind of made me think of bugs, not necessarily, big, gigantic 12-foot bugs, but something a little more like a bug in flight. I don't want to say Flight of the Bumblebee, which is a little bit different, but it was light and airy. It wasn't heavy percussion. It wasn't dark strings like a cello. Maybe there was some in there, but it was like bells tingling and just kind of, well, again, using the same words, ethereal.
Again, I would have to say that is indicative of Del Toro's style.
His preferred musical tastes.
Yeah, very ethereal, otherworldly. That's the atmosphere he likes to present. His technique on that may not have matured because this was pretty much, I guess, in his filmography, his second film.
Yeah, as I say, this is pretty early in his Hollywood career.
Yeah, it's his only second credited film. The only one before this was Kronos, which is one that I've always been interested in, but I haven't seen yet.
Familiar with it as a movie, knowing that it exists. I don't recall ever seeing it.
And the Devil's Backbone, another one that, again, I know it exists, and I've been every time I see it, I say, I gotta watch that, but I never got around to it. But I'd say that ethereal feeling really matured when he did Hellboy, Pan's Labyrinth, Hellboy 2. I really like to see where it comes now. I've got a lot of critical acclaim for The Shape of Water, his latest.
I am intrigued by that movie. I would like to go see it.
Yeah.
I might just wait till it comes out on DVD, though.
Well, my wife's very intrigued by it and everything. That doesn't happen very often, so I'm going to take advantage of that, and we'll probably go try and see it in the theater.
You probably should.
Yeah.
And slight tangent, and we'll bring this back to Mimic, because we did go see this in the theater, even though, again, it didn't receive grand critical acclaim. That's one of the things that I think has changed a lot nowadays with the way we watch movies. And again, part of the reason why we're doing this podcast is because we own the movies. Or one of us owns the movie. In this particular case, it's me. But with movies coming out 3-4 months after they were in the theaters on Blu-ray or DVD or whatnot, we will oftentimes just wait to see a movie that we would have gone and seen in the theater because we were curious about it. We're like, well, I'm curious, but I'm not that curious. I'll just wait for the home version. And I think that really does change the way we expect movies to be brought to us.
Absolutely. As I've said before, and I say it to everybody, there was a time in our lifetime where if we didn't see a movie in the theater, we didn't see it.
Yeah, if you didn't see it in the theater, you had to wait 4 to 5 years for ABC, CBS, NBC or perhaps your local station to get the rights to it, to show it like one time on television, and then maybe show it again a year later.
And even then, that was not a guarantee.
Right, and it was heavily edited for time and content, and you couldn't see the things then that you can see now. But the other part of this is that because we can see something 3 or 4 months after it comes out in the theaters, we will see something and go, oh, wow, that looks really interesting. For example, that Tom Cruise, Emily Blunt science fiction movie with, again, bug-like creatures, if you're familiar with it.
Familiar. Didn't see it, but I know what you're talking about.
It is a brilliant movie. It came highly recommended from a friend of mine, so I did go rent it, and I kind of felt bad for not going to see it in the theater, and that's the sort of thing that gets good science fiction pushed to the wayside because people don't go see it in the theater. So movie studios don't think, well, shoot, we should make more of this. It did so well. So that sort of pushes schlock science fiction or schlock horror, less quality movies down, rightfully so, but sometimes it keeps those stealth good movies from achieving the financial success that they should because they're actually good movies.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
It's weird. I mean, again, it's not like I have $10 to $13 to go see the regular version or the IMAX version in the middle of the evening. I mean, I would much rather catch a matinee for $5, maybe $8 if I recall correctly, nowadays. But, part of it is because movies are so damned expensive.
Yeah, I will say that, I don't see as many movies in theaters as I used to.
Again, going back to this movie, when we were in our mid-20s and we were both single, we would go to the movies all the time. It was like the thing to do.
Yeah, how many times a week did we go?
It was like, oh, yeah, hey, you want to go see that new movie? Okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I got nothing else better to do, yeah.
Yeah, and we would go catch something and we would explore different movies. Because I quite frankly wouldn't have gone to see this if you hadn't wanted to go. I know that. Like, no interest in that. But you would go see movies that I wanted to see that you weren't particularly intrigued by. So, we would get out of our comfort zones with movies, but we weren't worried about taking our wives, our kids, and having to buy all the crap. Our money was our money, and we just, did whatever the hell we wanted to do. So there's that, but movies were also cheaper. And I think for the standard nighttime movie, I think we paid like $7, $6.50 or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
And that was downtown San Diego. So,
yeah.
But yeah, because I remember seeing this movie at the Gaslamp 15, which is now closed.
Which kind of sucks. That was a nice theater.
Moment of silence. It was very interestingly decorated outside. It had that old style feel to it, but it was still a new theater.
Yeah. To kind of react though to it's like because we are more selective with our films, which ones we see in theaters and the other ones we say we're just going to wait till we see it on Netflix or whatever. Do you think that's an overall good thing or a bad thing or a mix?
Yes, I think it's a mix. I mean, there's good parts of it, there's bad parts of it.
But do you think that you miss out on certain movies?
Yes, because sometimes I see a movie at home and go, wow, I really wish I would have seen that on the big screen.
Yeah, I think in that aspect, I think it just kind of inches a little bit more on the bad side for me because there is that lackadaisical. Let me say that I say a laziness.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna go see it in that theater and everything, but then later on, when I do see it, whether it be on a DVD or on Netflix and everything, and I really guess I should have seen that in the theater.
Yeah, and again, the experience of sitting in a room with couple hundred people munching on some popcorn, having a little drink and all that kind of stuff. And as much as I try, I will never be able to recreate the thundering sound of the theater. Like the Transformers movies. As much as they are not great movies plot-wise, it's giant robots beating each other up.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to see that on the big screen with the explosions and the gut-wrenching sound.
With the right audience, too.
Yes.
Because Yeah, Transformers, again, not a life-changing experience, but certain scenes, it's like the car chase and you hear the crowd just explode into cheer. It's one of those movies where it's just like, yeah, not a significant movie, but it has a very significant memory because it was just so cool.
Right. But then watching a movie like this, if everyone jumps at the right time, if somebody beside you jumps and you were not going to, that may cause you to jump. So there's a certain degree of shared experience with horror movies as well. And I think, again, I wouldn't have gone to see this alone, but there are some movies that I will go see alone. This movie, I was glad, you and I went together to see it.
It's funny. It's the talk about certain memories. The movie Saw. I went to see that by myself because I couldn't find anybody that wanted to see it with me. Because I saw the commercials and like, oh, I don't want to go see that movie. So I was like, all right, I'm going to have to see this one on my own. Lucky for me, there was a sizable audience in there. So when the twist ending happened, the reaction was priceless. Just the people going,
Good.
Oh, man,
Awesome.
it's like all that, and it's just, yes, I'm freaking cool. So every time I watch that scene, I always remember that reaction. And that's the sad thing, though. Me and my cousin we used to get together with large groups to go see. I think you came with us one time to see Star Wars up north.
No, we went to see Star Trek.
Oh, that's right. And we talked about the Star Wars trailer. It was one of the Star Trek movies.
It was a Star Trek
Was it First Contact?
Insurrection.
Oh, was it Insurrection?
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, we marveled that we talked more about the 2-minute trailer than we did the actual movie that we saw.
Yeah, which says a lot for the movie itself. But anyway.
Again, another discussion for another time. But again,
Yes.
we discussed how seeing a movie with a reactive audience to really enhance that might be a passing thing. Because even he, who is still able to once in a while catch a movie at a nice theater on opening weekend with a large crowd, he says even then you don't hear a lot of the same cheers and reactions.
Oohs and ahs.
Because
Maybe we're becoming more jaded.
that's another possibility.
With the glut of so many gee whiz bang, rock'em sock'em explosion movies and stuff like that, maybe we're just expecting it in a way that we never did before.
Because I think the last of the really strong reactions from a movie that I have experienced was the reaction of when Yoda pulled out his lightsaber and started fighting Count Dooku. That to me that was like probably the most outrageous audience roar that I ever experienced in a movie
I
theater.
have been waiting 27 years to see this.
I think everyone felt that way. And then the very close second is when all the Jedi came charging out, all lightsabers and everything. So there's that.
So going back to Mimic for a minute, I mean, we've kind of wandered off to just the movie-going experience, and I think we kind of brought in this movie a little bit to what we would have expected. And I don't remember if the audience jumped or not when we saw this. I think there were some good jump scares. I'd mentioned that earlier. But overall, it was, fair to middling. It was a decent example of a horror movie. I don't want to get to final thoughts just yet, but there was just something about it that kind of kept it from breaking through into that, oh my god, this is an amazing movie. And I'm not quite sure what it was. Maybe it was some of the stuff we'd already discussed about some of the holes. Like, oh my god, 40,000 generations and nobody left yet? Why would it take the form of man when man wasn't hunting it?
Yeah.
Again, explain that.
Well, I think the thing I mentioned is that it didn't take us anywhere really that we haven't already been. It didn't show us anything that we hadn't already seen. Like you said, the whole thing, Jurassic Park came out first, so the idea of genetically modified animals running amok and quickly getting out of control. Been there, done that. Romps through the sewers. Been there, done that.
Yeah, a single beast chasing a strong female lead. Been there, done that.
Been there, done that, and society still didn't care too much about it either.
But I think Mira Sorvino did a great job. I think everyone did a great job acting in this.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything inherently bad about the acting. The special effects were a little...
There were some parts that were, like you said, a little overdone.
Yeah,
maybe.
there's the word. A little bit overdone. But other than that, I definitely felt the threat of, the man in the raincoat type disguise. Seeing that in the shadows.
Yes. Yeah, that creeped me out.
That was very creepy. Which, kind of side note, though, when it left it the disguise and flew at Sorvino, and it's like it was still scary.
It wasn't as intimidating, it's scary. I think
it was
is the right
scary
word.
it was a familiar scary, like being chased by a lion. Okay, it's a threat.
Yeah,
I need to run away.
It wasn't creepy scary.
It wasn't that deep. Like I said, that visceral, otherworldly creepiness. But unfortunately, like I said, for Del Toro, it wasn't a period where his otherworldly portrayals were mature.
And as we'd mentioned before, this was maybe his second movie, or second big ticket movie. So he grew, and I like a lot of his newer stuff, and I like Hellboy. They're a lot of fun. Again, they're good romps.
They took us places, though. And like I said, this one, again, a lot of been there, done that, a lot of places that were too familiar. So that's probably what didn't really hook us.
And I think that's what kept it from breaking on through to the other side, as the saying goes. There were a couple of little things, like when the kid went missing. Again, that's a stereotype where, kid goes off on his own to go investigate something. It was a different twist that he was autistic, but it was still one of those going off to do things. There were a lot of tropes in here. Like we talked about, the stereotypical subway kind of guy that Charles Dutton played. The little kids, or the younger kids, that were out looking to make a fast buck on the street. And I liked that they mentioned, in the city, there's a lot of other things they could be doing to make a buck. Let's be excited that they're actually, taking an interest in this and that sort of thing. So one of the other things that I took down in my notes was, again, going back to entomology and insect behavior. Not an entomologist, don't know, but I will say when he was trying to light the fire, at the very end, and all of the bugs were gathered around him, it was kind of one of those moments where you're like, well, why are all those insects just standing around? Why doesn't one just attack him? Surely one of these bugs is hungry or wants to defend the nest. Why would they all gather around and wait in the way that perhaps a human might? And maybe that's it. Maybe because they were developing organs and all that kind of stuff. But it was awfully convenient for those bugs to just get in a circle and wait for him to strike 3 times to try and get a spark out of that hammer.
Well, perhaps this was the development of a polite society. You want to go? You go? No, please. After you. After you. No. You know what? You haven't eaten in a couple of days, man. But I'm good. I'm on a diet. I'm kind of like, it's like, well, and then
this carapace is getting kind of heavy.
And then the other one in the background was like, hey, somebody do something, and then it's like, I told you so.
Yeah, and never mind the mechanics of 12-foot tall bugs, 12-foot long bugs rather, and being able to fly with those itty-bitty wings. I'm pretty sure that wouldn't happen in the realm of physics. I hit the I believe button. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm about to say, we'll believe it.
It worked for the story. I did, in fact, you mentioned Starship Troopers a couple of times. One of the things that I did think during the movie, and this was sort of having seen the movie before, I knew the plot, and I knew what was going to happen. But one of the things that I did want to do was keep myself from jumping. And when the big bug showed up, and he was doing stuff that was sort of seemed sneaky, like when he broke into the lab and stole the bug that the kids had brought and took it out, I immediately flashed to Starship Troopers and said, "Oh, you're some kind of smart bug, aren't you?" So, there was that. The only other thing that I really pointed out, again, and this was to calm my nerves because this movie did do what it was supposed to do and make me jump, was when they're in the subway car and Charles Dutton's character is just pulling the trigger as fast as he possibly can. I did stop and think, wow, that is a phenomenal argument for high-capacity magazines. When the 12-foot bugs show up, I need to be able to unload in them. I think he shot like 47 rounds without ever dropping his magazine. He did refer to it as a clip, which is kind of a pet peeve of mine. I put a full clip into that thing! It's a magazine, not a clip. But, again, that's me being pet peevish.
Yeah. I just wonder, whenever you hear a character say, I emptied an entire clip/magazine into it, nothing happened, why keep trying?
Conditioned response, that's all we know.
Okay.
Oh.
I mean, because like I liked in Battle Los Angeles with the aliens, it's like the guns were relatively ineffectual, but then when they got one and they said, okay, this got to work somehow, and he kept stabbing them in different places, and then he found the sweet spot. And he goes, "It's just
Yeah.
okay, aim here." Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
All right. Well, now you got a
Now you
reason.
got a
Yeah.
reason,
Now you
but,
got product.
Yeah, I just see in so
improvement.
many movies where like they keep firing the gun, and it's like, okay, it's pretty much useless. Either find something else or change your strategy because it ain't working.
It's cathartic. It makes you feel
I
better.
guess.
But all right. So you have anything else you want to talk about
No,
about this movie?
no, I'm surprised we talked about as much as we did about this movie.
I was noticing the time passing, going, "Wow, we've really put a lot of discussion into this, and we pretty much, for the most part, stayed on target."
Relatively,
so,
yeah.
Good on
more than
us.
we've done in other films, though.
So let's bring it to final thoughts. What's your overall impression of the movie?
I don't want to say mediocre, but it's kind of the low, just inside the radar range type.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I think maybe I would give it a little bit more credit because, again, it did what it was supposed to do. I will happily admit that I jumped a couple of times, and since I hate bugs, it worked well for me as a thing that would scare me. So
like we normally do in our commentaries, we tend to think a little deeper or anything. I know in kind of doing the research for this, I did find stumble upon a few web pages that talked about the movie, and a lot of people were able to find a lot of deep sociological issues. The portrayal and treatment of the homeless people that lived in the sewer. It's just it very indicative or anything. But again, I think it wasn't enough of that. Again, a lot of been there, done that. That just keeps it on the fringes of the radar range for me. Not to say it was a bad movie. It was good. Like you said, it served its purpose.
Yep. All right. Well, if you did own it, where would you put it on your shelf?
Well, no big surprise. General population.
Ooh,
Dun, dun, dun.
look, it's my shocked face. To our listeners at home, I may or may not post a picture of my shocked face on the Facebook page. Maybe included in the show notes. You don't know. Actually, that would involve me taking a picture of it. But anyway.
I will say one thing, though. Again, in researching this, I found out that there is a director's cut that Del Toro was happier with. Because I guess it was said that Del Toro wasn't happy with the theatrical release.
One of the things that I had read also in doing the research was that some studio honcho kept coming down and going, no, do this. No, do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I can understand where he would not have been happy with the theatrical cut.
I will investigate sometime, maybe if I come across it on Netflix or something,
Okay.
I'll investigate the director's cut, and maybe I might be more impressed with it.
All right. Well, it is the director's vision, so
Mm-hmm.
it gives it a little bit more meat.
Yeah, and especially if a director's cut had a lot of special features on the DVD or / Blu-ray, I might be more interested in buying it because I
Fair
think
enough.
we've mentioned before, I love the special features a lot of times.
Just out of deference to you, I took a look at the special features on the DVD that I had, and I watched them all. One was the trailer, and the other was functionally 2 screens of, if you liked this movie, you might like these. Like, but again, the mid-90s or 97 when this came out, that was the beginning of DVD. VHS was still king. So when you watched a movie, you had to go through all of the trailers and the FBI warning to get to the stuff. You couldn't skip it. And when DVD came out, they had to have a hook that would get you in the door to start converting over to this new dynamic format, and that was special features. And a lot of the older DVDs that I have that are the cardboard little plastic clips and they flip open are special features, theatrical trailer. Oh, well, all right. Now we're spoiled. Now we get the making of, behind the
documentary,
scenes,
the inspirations,
yeah, exactly,
directors and actors
yeah.
commentary.
So, it was kind of sad. I was a little disappointed. I'm like, oh, that's it? I mean, nothing about, the creature magic or anything like that? Nope, nothing.
So, again, if the director's cut had maybe like a documentary on consulting entomologists and how we came about making the Judas bug, I'd be interested in that.
I would be intrigued to understand that as well, why they picked that, cockroaches, that's pretty easy, nobody likes them, but as to how much research they actually did with entomologists into insect communication and insect, hive dynamics and that sort of thing. Because that part fascinates me, I just don't like bugs.
Right.
Because if they're over there, fine. I acknowledge that there are insects in my house right now. I just don't want to see them.
Yeah.
Just stay where you are and don't eat my
There's
crap.
a few of them in the ceiling right above your head right now.
I'm sure there are. Big ones pooping on the
There you
ceiling
go.
so that Charles Dutton can tell me about it. Anyway, so for me, I would put this movie in general population as well. It's serviceable. It did what it was supposed to do, but it wasn't anything that would move me to recommend it to a metric butt ton of people and to talk about it like I do other movies that we've discussed, like Monty Python. That's top shelf for me, so that's not a spoiler because we talked about that in episode 9. But yeah, it's Gen Pop. I got to agree with you.
All right.
So, shall we see what our next movie is?
We shall.
All right, let us go to the random magic movie button. All right, here we go. Pushing the button.
Alice in Wonderland: The Masterpiece Edition.
Oh, a Disney cartoon.
Oh, the cartoon?
The Masterpiece Edition. Yeah, the cartoon. That'll be interesting. We haven't talked about an animated Disney film before. We've done Pixar.
Okay, yeah, what's to say?
Not an actual cell animation movie.
Yeah, one of the classics.
That'll be fun. And I haven't watched that in forever.
Yeah, same here. That's one of the few Disney movies I have both on DVD and Blu-ray. So
I don't remember if we have the Blu-ray or not. I know we had it on VHS, if that counts. Interesting point of note, I do still have some VHS movies that are not on this list because I do still have a VCR in the garage that's not attached to anything. But just in case I need a VCR, I've got one.
very nice.
So, listeners, if you want to leave some comments about this episode or any others, you can contact us on our Facebook page. We'll review it ourselves on Facebook. You can email us at wrios2016mr@gmail.com. And you can contact us on our Podbean page. You can leave us a review on iTunes. You can leave us a review on Google Play. We're available on a couple of different podcasting apps that use those as feeds. So feel free to get in contact with us. Share us with your friends if you like it or not. Even if you don't like it, share it anyway so they can suffer along with you. Because I'm all about, mutual suffrage. If we're all going to suffer together, then, that creates a bond.
But hey, it'll give us the opportunity, if you just tell us that we're the worst podcast you've ever heard of, I can say, but you have heard of us.
Exactly, yes. So, if you want to talk about 12-foot tall insects, show me pictures of bugs just to freak me out, that'd be great. Again, you're contacting us, and we appreciate that. If you have your own opinion about this movie, let us know. We look forward to hearing from you. So, as always, I will offer Dan the opportunity to lead us out with a movie-themed goodbye. You got some spoons?
I'm about to say, I don't know if I can do... it's like...
That's not what I was expecting.
And watch, I've just insulted the bug population. I'm like, what'd you say about my mama?
Nice. And with that, we will see you in 2 weeks with
Alice in Wonderland.
Alice in Wonderland. Oh, I did forget to mention Happy New Year because this will be our first podcast of the new year, 2018.
Outstanding.
Let's hope by the time you hear this, it's going very well. We'll be a week in. So, all right, see you in 2 weeks.